we are ready to go live. Yes, we are live.
Right.
Good evening, viewers. Back here today again to discuss not a very happy scenario. Who's going to be happy if there is a war around, right? We know that we are going to today discuss about the Israel-Palestinian situation. Along with us is the expert today is Vibhuti. You are familiar with him, but for those who are watching it today for the first time, he came to USA in the year 1991 in the leadership role with American Express Bank. He came to build and develop Indo-US business relationships. He accomplished that by promoting NRI businesses between the two countries and encouraged US-India relations and more of a understanding about between both the nations. He also wanted to build the Indian values among the young people. So he began to study about the mysterious and the unknown, and he started developing and also inculcating the values, the Indian values to the uninitiated and the curious mind. He has been doing it for quite many years, and nowadays he is also hosting a radio show called Nyara, and it seems to be and also they have started something called as Jaipur Dialogues US version, and it is being aired in the US timing, Eastern timing, 10:30, right?
Yes, Sunday.
Yes, on Sunday. So do join him. If we all want to enlighten ourselves about what is happening in the Indian scenario, in the US scenario, in the world scenario. Now, none of us can, afford to live in a vacuum. We can't afford to live in a separate entity. We are all united, whether we want it or not. We are a global village. So what happens in one part of the world does affect the other part of the world. And COVID has shown it to us so clearly that you can't say that, okay, I'm in a cocoon and I'm safe and I'm fine. We can't ever say that. So with this introduction, I would like to start the talk on, what is happening in that part of the world, that is Israel and Palestine. Now, as we all know, Israel is a very small nation, and very probably around 23,000 square kilometers, a little bigger than, slightly bigger than probably New Jersey, as big as perhaps Bihar in India. And that nation is quite powerful, if you ask me. And at the same time, we are also having, the nation also has an issue with Palestine. And as far as India is concerned, yes, we have had good relations with Israel for quite some time. And also with Palestine, we have been building relations, lukewarm sometimes good. And we find that, now both the countries are embroiled in a conflict, which is not new. We all know that it has been there for ages. But then what is new now? How did it all start? What is the history? And then what happened recently of late? What is the recent provocation, the immediate trigger? We would like to understand that from Vibhuti. So over to you.
Over to me. Thank you very much. But two words which I generally do not apply to myself is that I'm not an expert, and but I'm an observer.
I know that you will say that.
I'm an observer of things. Yeah. I learned it in my learning exercise. Yes. That some people learn in a particular way, some people learn in a different way. Yes. And I am the kind of a guy who learns by observing more than reading and trying to theorize or go deeper and deeper into the same problem, that you end up losing the wood for the jungle, like you lose the whole picture. So I prefer to call myself an observer of events, and I have learned a lot in that process. That's one. Number two, enlightenment. Enlightenment is a very spiritual thing. I say, become consciously aware. That's important, consciously aware of your surroundings that you live in, the environment that you interact with, people that you live with, people that you interact with. So if you become consciously aware about all these happenings around you, then you do not react to a challenge, because more often than not, we always end up reacting. What is needed is response. And the difference between react and response is that you react like a typical Western thing, shooting off the hip, the gun is out and I'm out to shoot. But when you have to respond, then you target. So I will make another very interesting observation here, which came to my mind when I was on Jaipur Dialogue yesterday, that we Hindus are seekers of truth, right? We are the seekers. So a lot of people talk about why Hindu unity doesn't happen. Well, that's in our DNA. We are all individually knowledgeable. We are all individually very conscious. And we think individually, seeking our own truth. But we forget sometimes that even Arjun and Ram had to focus. The energy follows attention. So they had to focus with shooting of the arrow incident, if you remember both of them. Ram had to shoot at Bali, cheering.
Very well said, in NLP also we say
Arjun
that.
trying to shoot in Draupadi wedding, shooting in the fish's eye, looking down. So just imagine what focus must have been required. So we must collate the data, we must collate the information and learn from individual experiences that energy follows attention. So we may be seekers, but we must unite behind a common purpose. So Israel, let's come back to the Israel and Palestinian issue, which has been there since early 1900s. So in India also we were aware, we remembered that India for a long time did not have diplomatic relations with Israel because we have massive Muslim population in the country. So to cater to their frustration, solidarity, all things put together, India was not recognizing Israel as a diplomatic entity. And as a result of which, for a long time, India-Israel relationship was in cold storage. But there is a very interesting fact that it was P.V. Narasimha Rao, when he was the Prime Minister, he broke the entire chain. He was the first one to begin to look at things from a different prism. That, Israel had relationship with many countries, didn't have relationship with many countries. It had United States, it had Russia. They had been diplomatic relationship with China and everybody else. So if disparaging interest and a varying interest, not disparaging, but varying interest brought the collusion of recognition and doing some things. And that was recognized a long time ago. So now everybody knows that India and Israel are in direct conflict with a thought process called Islam. So what is happening is that we are also affected by the same issues. We are not an Abrahamic faith, and we have to deal with the issues relating to Islam. And that's what has brought these two countries together. The second element about India-Israel relationship is that Israel is a survivor nation in that part of the world, surrounded by enemies. It has no friend, and it is a tiny country, as you rightly mentioned in the beginning. So if Israel can survive, surrounded by so many enemies, having fought wars, and at a constant attention, in a constant warlike situation, with a constant attack from all the people around it, what about us, India? We are harassed by our small neighbors. And one of them, such evil that wants our destruction, but we still talk about Aman Ki Asha. So think about the discordant note that exists, that what is it about us that we can't handle a small enemy, and instead of we are going to focus on, Israel deals with the whole situation. There is a tremendous amount of scientific, industrial capacity building, IT, you have, youth and skills development. These are key things that India can learn from, and how to from Israel, and how to tackle the challenge of terrorism and about your survival thing. So let me put it this way to you. The Israel thing is very, very serious. The Jews have been persecuted around the world. In 1917, in a Balfour Declaration, Britain acknowledged, British Balfour Declaration was to accord Jewish homeland for in Palestine. Now, Palestine has, the thing called what do you call Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is the holiest place for all Abrahamic faith. Now, that's where the conflict comes in. to realize it is actually a religious conflict going into a political tension, military conflicts, and disputed land. So when Israel became a country, Jewish homeland became a country in Palestine, somebody had to be displaced. So it is a very tragic situation from that point of view. You have to sympathize with the Palestinian plight. What did they do to deserve that? You know, that's another question to be answered, which nobody is answering. So that's the issue that is very important for us to figure out. It is, people talk about, for India part of it, particularly here, India's role. India has to be ambivalent in this scenario because this is not a problem of India's making. India must pursue its own self-interest and its own goals in this regard. And, without just getting into the conflict, because there are enough problems on our own door to worry about somebody else's problem, right? But collaboration and cooperation can always happen. So, that is very important to remember. But this particular conflict that is going on right now has its origin in the entire situation created by the British of dividing. They had, the European contribution to world peace, as I always say, is 2 world wars. They have been very smart about converting a domestic, local European issue in a global scenario. They were the imperialist and colonial powers all over the world. They drew the line between India and China, India and Pakistan, Pakistan and Afghanistan, Israel and Palestine. They left behind the problem. Let's acknowledge that fact first. And in the division of India, partition of India documents, the British have, you can search that out. British stated it that we have to divide Hindus and Muslims to such an extent that they can never come together. They screwed us then, they screwed us now, and they will keep screwing us, and we will let them do it because we hate each other so much. So the question arises is that, is it against Islam? Is it against Jewish? Is it against Christianity? No. India has had a policy of Sarva Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, pray whoever you want, pray to whoever you want, pray however you want. Don't tell me that I'm wrong about myself. So it is important to bear in mind the conflict that has raged there. It's about land, it's about property, it's about military conflict, which results into that process. Now, this particular conflict, this has been a conflict for a long time, but important to remember that for 4 years that Mr. Trump was the president, he gave Palestinians a warning that you attack and we take your land. The United States is right behind Israel. And Israel has given a lot to America also through their innovations, through their entrepreneurship. And the United States became the big market for Israeli technology and everything that was related to that. So if everybody has a right to live, how can we ignore whether it's a Palestinian life or an Israel? There has to be a solution. My observation is very simple. You are living with a problem on which there have been several agreements in the past, from Oslo agreements to Camp David, number of them agreements, but none of them ever got implemented. 2 of them are very important, which was done by Jimmy Carter when he was the president. Camp David agreement was rejected by United Nations General Assembly. You know why? Because United Nations was not part of the deal. Think about it. And they made a point that Palestinian Liberation Authority was not into that agreement. So this agreement is invalid. Right? Then came the Clinton part of Clinton's ambition was to bring about rapprochement. That was in 2000. Clinton brought the agreement, and apparently, if the authors and narrators of this incident are correct, then we know that Arafat got almost 90% of what he wanted. But he didn't agree. He didn't agree. He wanted the conflict to continue. This is where you have to begin to understand the theological impact of that entire process. You know what? It was written in a book that, this guy, Arafat, told Clinton, "You are a great guy. You're a great man." And Clinton replied to him saying that, "No, I'm not a great man. I'm a failed man.
Yeah.
I'm a failed man, and you are responsible for making me failed man. Not only that, King of Jordan, he said the statement that it's not a violation. It's a crime for Arafat to reject this deal. So you have that particular background as to, are Palestinians being used as a tool for further conflicts?
Yes.
Or and nobody wants settlement of Jews, because nobody
Do not
in
want
the world
peace.
wants Israel to live in peace other than Israelis themselves, because
Yes.
they know one thing, because Hamas is a Shia organization, Iran sponsored.
Right.
Palestinians are Sunnis. How
Yeah.
are they doing together? So the important part
Right.
here is to remember that statement made by some Hamas and Palestinian people, that eventually we will throw Israelis into the Red Sea, because our
Exactly.
population will expand, but how much will they expand? So when they are
Exactly.
facing an existential threat, then this is what is going to happen. The trigger for this one was very simple: the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is
Yeah.
supposed to be the holiest of the holy place, where every religion, all Abrahamic faith have a vested interest in there, have a place there. And the point is very simple. For 4 years, there was none. Trump choked the supply of money, funding, and Biden comes and he releases the funds, and here the missiles
Palestine.
start flying. So you
Yeah.
have to understand the domestic compulsions of United States or the Biden external policy. It's in a mess. It's all over the conversation that Israel is back to being in mess. But Biden did call Netanyahu and told him that Israel has a right to self-determination and that United States will stand behind it. Politics is one thing, whatever is one thing, but reality is that this is a very sad situation, because a lot of money is being wasted, a lot of lives are being lost, and the conflict will pursue unless and until they shun violence. And I believe
Absolutely.
that both countries must commit that
Yes.
violence is not the way to go forward. Innocent
Absolutely.
people die,
Absolutely.
both sides of the aisle.
Yes. Very true. There was this comment: India only supports those against Islam. So, this is what I was telling you. Like India has at one point of time almost given $10 million to Palestine. And Prime Minister Modi has personally visited also Palestine. So, if those intentions were not there, it wouldn't have happened, right? So, but India never feels like that. But people believe what they want to believe. That is what I see. Even
Yeah.
though there are so many things to prove to the contrary, that we are willing to make bridges. We want to do everything because we believe in, Vasudeva Kudumbakam, to the extent that we go to appease people who are not worthy of it, right? Yet, people still complain that the government will favor only those who are against Islam, which is absolutely not true.
Yeah,
So,
I see the
yes,
statement by Zara
comment, yes,
Agarwal
yes,
here.
yes,
India only supports those against Islam. That's a absolute baloney. I would dare to say that to Zara. I mean, with due respect, because that's
yes,
an unfair statement to make. Because for
exactly,
the simple reason, the truth must be told. India is
yes,
friends to everybody. It had a foreign policy of non-alignment because
exactly,
of this very reason, that you handle your own problem, leave us to us, leave us
yes,
to ourselves. This is important part to remember. This is a very myopic statement, in my opinion, to say that India only supports those against Islam. But hey, you forget, Zara, that UAE has a diplomatic relationship. Saudis are
yes,
moving towards that. Bahrain has a diplomatic relationship. So what is their relationship with Israel now? So even enemies of India are friends with Israel, and Israel is friends with many countries. Politics
exactly,
is of a different kind. Friendship is of a different kind. So
right,
despite all the terror from Pakistan, we have not broken the diplomatic relations with Pakistan. So what do you say to that? Is that friendship, or is it baloney? So I would put it this way to you, that we must get out of that mindset.
exactly,
India is against Islam. India is not against Islam. India is not against Christianity. The tragedy of India is that because India doesn't build its own narrative, people are attacking India in ways that sounds ridiculous. Council of Foreign Relations, today I just sent a message. Council of Foreign Relations sent me a message that there is a conference happening on rise of illiberal democracy, and they have taken the example of Brazil, Hungary, and India. And I said, this is so ridiculous. India is the country where opposition and minorities have constitutional protection.
Absolutely.
And
not this protection, like you said,
illiberal democracy in India is absolute ridiculous. You can't even describe that. I wrote to them, actually. I said that instead of talking about India as a liberal democracy, you should be talking about the rise of wokeism and cultural cancellation that is happening in America. And if you differ from that point of view, forget about opposing. Even if you differ from that point of view or don't agree with that point of view, you are immediately branded as a phobic or somebody who you are attacked personally. And this is the country where former President Trump, his Facebook and Twitter accounts are cancelled. What are we talking about freedoms? This is the illiberal rise of undemocratic things in communication in America. So, what are we talking about really? So we need to be careful about that. But then one thing is very true. The sympathy is with Palestinians because they are a small group of people. They need to be taken care of. But sympathy is also big time with people of Israel. But remember one thing, they suffered a Holocaust. Can any Islamic country say that they suffered a Holocaust of that kind? And they have been living in a life of survival mode all along, constantly threatened by enemy at the door. So, you have to have sympathy for those people. What they did.
More than 1,500 years.
Yes.
One after the other.
And what they did.
Ottomans and the British and
Right. What they did was very smart. And what they did was very simple. We are a small group of people. So how do we make ourselves relevant? So they caught on to America, which America gave them a homeland, protection, and everything else. And in turn, they became entrepreneurs, innovators. So many Nobel Peace Prize winners are Israelis. So they began to bring about an intellectual power and began to control levers of power. So there is more deep-seated thing in this. Because they, in America, began to have significant influence in media, Wall Street, money, in Hollywood movie making. They penetrated these means of communication, these means of power, intermediate power, that allowed them to make and call their shots.
Yeah. In fact, Israel, I think, had certain land in their possession, which they gave back, even which they need not have done it at all, right?
Right.
Yes. So for the sake of peace, they did give up several times, try to, please the opposition, but they did not. They still wanted to keep always troubling them, which has been happening continuously.
Correct.
Right? They're not looking for any ways to, bring peace to Israel. Even now, what happened is, like, there were some 300 or 400 people who had occupied the houses of Israelis, and Israelis had the land deed. They had purchased that, and they were thrown out of their own houses. And for about 20 years, the Arabs, Palestinian Arabs, have enjoyed that. Now they've come back. Once they've come back, they're coming and asking for the possession. The Supreme Court of Israel says that these Palestinian Arabs who are there in the east part of Jerusalem, occupying the houses of the Israelis, they cannot be vacated because they have lived here for 20 years. So we are going to give them protected rights, but they have to pay rent to the Jews who are the original owners. Now these people refuse to even pay the rent. So the original owners are the Jews. They have been thrown out of the house. These people have enjoyed the house for more than 50 years, because 20 years during the Jordan rule. And after that, when they've come back and they're asking for 30 years, it has been going on in Supreme Court. In 1982, they received the orders that, okay, you can collect rent. And these people are not ready to pay the rent also. Right? So it is like somebody occupies your land and then they don't let you ever come back. and they're not even allowing, not even sharing any fruits of that particular place. Where will these people go?
Right. See,
So
this is what is important here is, these days, thanks to technology, we
yes,
can go back into the documents and see exactly what has happened when and make
yes,
our own choices. So I'm not
absolutely,
going to comment upon what happened in 35, what happened in 37, what happened in this time. What I'm
yeah,
trying to focus on is the fact that deception,
the
deceiving,
deception, exactly,
it has happened. Israel was attacked in 1967. 6 countries attacked Israel. The Israelis fought and beat back and occupied land, won the land, right? Won the land, and they are occupying it so that they take away that much land from further ingression. Likewise, you had Yom Kippur. On the day of Yom Kippur, they were attacked again. So the issue is they are continuously living under a threat. They
yeah,
do not know who will attack when. So, look at this. That is one of the very interesting issues that people will always say, oh, Israel attacked disproportionately.
yeah,
They hit back disproportionately. And that is a word which I don't understand at all.
exactly, yeah,
Disproportionate attack. Hey, I'm a small country. If you kill one
yeah,
man of mine, my one man is equal to
equivalent to
100
it,
members, you know,
absolutely,
given the population base that is there. So the question arises is that how do you define proportionate or disproportionate? This is the issue that we have to bear in mind, that you can't sit on judgment. For example, people say, oh, they hit the civilians.
yeah,
Is anybody talking about the civilians' deaths and the hitting beyond the dome in Israel in civilian areas? Nobody's condemning
absolutely,
Hamas for that.
yeah,
Nobody's
absolutely,
condemning Palestinians for
talking
that.
about that,
Media is
yes,
silent on that. That's what happens is that your stand gets more and more hard. The Western support for Palestine is more politics than substantive, because everywhere,
absolutely,
every segment of the world, the
right,
Islamic people have a presence in a democratic setup. They have a presence, though they
yeah,
create domestic pressure. Israelis don't have
exactly,
people, Jews don't have people, voting power, but the Muslims have a voting power. Arab have a voting power. So there is everywhere there is a voting power involved. So, for example, let's look at this way: when the influx of population happened in Europe, Germany, and other places, remember Syrian war and others.
yes,
What did Saudi Arabia say? We will build 800 mosques in Germany. And I
yeah,
asked the simple question, why 800 mosques? And they were going to spend $800 million to build mosques. I say build 80 and give remaining 720 million people to the migrants whose lives will change.
exactly,
That's what is important to remember. And, there is another element to this whole process is that politics begins to play a big role. um,
absolutely,
it's the biggest role. The world, there's a famous statement that says the human mind is full of conflict, seeks conflict actually. It all
yeah,
depends whether you are supplying bullets or bandages. So, when you make sophisticated weapons, you need a testing ground. And unfortunately, I'm very blunt about it. The 5 major weapons sellers of the world are the members of the UN Security Council:
that's so
China,
sad, absolutely,
USA,
yeah,
USSR, France, and Britain, and then add Germany and others. These are
yeah,
the biggest weapons sellers in the world. If only they stop selling the weapons, people will have no weapons to fight. So where does Hamas,
no,
where
but
does
Hamas get its weapons from,
get the weapons, the missiles? Who supplies them? And these are the Security Council members. So my question is very simple. I don't want to go back into history of 50 years. I want to talk about today. I want to ask
okay,
these 5 Security Council members, why are you selling weapons? You know, even cars have you have a technology that you can locate a car. You put a car jack, right? As the famous thing goes. You
right,
mean to say we can't know where the weapons came from? Why don't we hold the weapon suppliers as guilty? That's not a freedom of selling weapons. You freedom of speech and freedom of life and life, liberty, and
yes,
pursuit of happiness is not enamored by the fact that you are supplying weapons to people to kill. This is a fundamental issue that we have to begin to address. And
yes,
one thing which I'll add here: this time is not enough to discuss this such a complicated problem in full detail. But what I use the phrase is knowing what you know now. Today, we are fortunate that we have the resources available in computers and everywhere else that you can Google and find out as to who is doing what. I don't need to say that. But if you want to understand the Israeli point of view, you have enough on the Hamas side. If you want to understand the Israeli point of view, I would urge everybody to read one of my favorite books. It's called The Startup Nation.
Startup Nation.
Startup Nation.
Yes.
You are a very hardworking and learned woman, but you don't know about that book, right? Pick that book and read it.
I heard about it yesterday in Jaipur Dialogues. You spoke.
I was the one who was talking.
Yes. I spoke about it. Yes.
So what I'm saying is, The Startup Nation is a book not about Israel, how beautiful it is. It is about the nation that recognizing that we have to fight wars all the time. We have to become self-sufficient in developing our own selves, because we cannot rely on anyone till the final end. We do not know who our friends are. With reference to America, they know that they have invested big time. There are enough number of Jews in America, about 2% of the population, and 2% or so.
2%.
And they have significant presence in key areas of the economy and politics. They are very heavily invested in Democratic Party. In Republican Party, Republican Party supports them absolutely openly. Democratic Party is playing games because they have their own little agenda. The Jews and Israelis are recognizing this element very seriously, that Democratic Party is somewhere along the line leaning towards the likes of Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and others, and many people who are of that faith, who are on that side of the fence, and they know that they are
on both boats. Democratic
Party, they will lose significantly if they lose the Jewish vote. And the Islamic intent in America is a very classic sports game. Hit your opponent where he is strongest. Weaken him there, and then from that point onwards, the cards begin to fail and fall. The reason is very simple. If you hit Jews in America, you have weakened them everywhere else. If you make America rethink its position with reference to Israel, then it is different. But that's why it was very interesting that it became, Trump made the move to make Israel acceptable to rest of the Middle East, where Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Morocco, and all these places. So these are Islamic countries. They established democratic relationships. Recently, I know somebody who went to Dubai. He said Emirates flight was 50% of with the Jews in it, from people from Israel. They began to accept and allow travel. Earlier, some time ago, you could not travel to Dubai if you had an Israeli stamp on your passport. So you know what they used to do? They used to give you the passport visa stamp on a separate piece of paper, so that it's not permanently stamped on your passport. Think about it. That was the restrictions, and now that restriction is gone. Even Saudi Arabia and the Sunni world recognizes this fact that they are at a permanent war with Shia Iran. And Iran is trying to, Middle East politics is very, very complicated. I think, as Stephen Cohen, one of my favorite thinkers, he's no more, he made a statement in one of the forums that he did not vote for Trump, but he made a statement that this guy ends up making the right statement. Whether he does it by mistake or intuitively, I do not know. So his statement, that two statements, he applauded that. Although a Trump opponent, he said, the fact that Trump is trying to establish a friendly relationship with Russia is a good thing to happen, because you can't be in conflict with somebody who is as powerful as you are in nuclear arsenal. So you have to have. The Cold War is over, you have to find areas of cooperation. You cannot live with an enemy permanently. The second one was the fact that he made the statement, why are we in Middle East? Because these people have been fighting the tribal wars for hundreds of thousands of years, hundreds of years. Why are we trying to solve a problem where they can't themselves solve? And when we go there to solve their problem, they say we don't want a foreign army on our soil. So heads you win, tails you lose. So he said that's
Yes.
not the way to deal with the scenario. So they have to come to solution themselves.
And you lose your own people also, right? Your own people. So many United States warriors, they go there and lose their lives, right? And a lot of money, taxpayers' money.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I
So
would
all
urge
that
everybody to
you do,
read.
and it is a thankless job.
I would urge all the viewers today, pick up the book. It's a 10 years old book or something
Startup
like that.
mission.
But
Yes.
Startup Nation, this will tell you the rise of a small country, how the people,
Yes.
created that feeling that we have to be what we are not today. So they began to fulfill the requirements of their army to be ever ready. That's where the economy surged. Will you believe me if I tell you that because their Israeli women are also in the defense forces, to take care of their monthly
Men.
cycle,
Yeah.
they created a pad that can stock the blood for 5 days or it will dry up anytime. Can you believe it? I know that woman. She lives in California here. And also when I met her in the technology seminar, she was very anxious to come to India. I lost contact with her, but I will definitely find her back again. They have developed the solutions to the problem. You know that Israelis developed the technology for desalination of water? Desalination of water,
Yes.
because they're
It's
surrounded.
happening in a huge scale in all Gulf countries, but I do not know that Israel is found it.
Israel was the one. And
Saudi Arabia
Subramanian
does it in
Swami,
a huge scale. Yeah.
Subramanian Swami actually said in one of the forums in New York that if Tamil Nadu wants, he's a Tamilian himself. So he said if
Yes.
Tamil Nadu wants drinking water, all they have to do is to import the water
Is lineage.
desalination process from Israel and you will have plenty of drinking water. So Israel has come up with technologies that enables it to survive, and how the nationhood, the concept of nationhood, survival, made that
Brilliant.
country what it is. Believe it or not, in 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to power, I had recommended that in my article that you
Yeah.
must mandate this book to be read by every Indian
Okay.
because we
Yes.
have we do not stand as a nation together. we
Yeah.
we are a very divided group of people. So nation, how the concept of nationhood comes in is important.
Yes.
It's not nationalism. Nothing. I don't find anything wrong with nationalism either. But the point
Yes.
is that to have that feeling that you are one
One nation.
from
Yes.
when you are driven by a particular problem, that is a problem.
Amazing. It is so difficult to create that feeling of, that nationhood. It is a very important emotion that people need to have it.
Right.
Startup nation, right? I have written there on the message so that people can read the title of the book,
Mm-hmm.
buy and read it. Yes. So that emotion is so, so strong and it is absolute necessity. In the absence of it, there are so many people exploring it, so many nations exploring it, and within the nation itself, and it is so difficult to fight enemies from within. And not that all of them deliberately do it. Many of them are simply following people whom they follow. They do not even understand, and they are following. And then there are people who are easily sold to foreign elements, and they continuously spread the propaganda which is against the nation, and people fall a prey to it. For example, even this, India will support naturally racist. This is what they called it: racist eviction. Israelis step towards Palestine. So they did not agree that Palestine attacked them first. They say that it's a racist eviction, what the Israelis are doing, and Indians are supporting it. Many tweets going along, people who are not at all, do not have any understanding about political science, what is happening, but still commenting. So, yes, like here you see the comments, people don't bother to read up, like you said. And so they just like to be led by the nose, and they do not understand that they are cutting their nose to spite their face. In order to prove somebody wrong, you are doing harm to yourself as a nation.
Right.
Yes. So that is the beautiful thing. So what are the nations that are supporting Israel?
The nations that are supporting Israel are supporting more covertly. The only country that supports openly is America. That is the United States. Rest of Europeans and others, they will play politics. They will use words,
Okay.
which will say that, yeah, Israel has the right for self-determination. You can't argue with that, right? Everybody has a right to live. They have to fight for their own survival. So
Right.
the self-defense argument can't be taken away. As
Yes.
simple as that. Now, who starts the war? Who starts the fight? One of the things is very important is you need to let sometimes steam off. As the saying goes sometimes, men have this habit actually.
Yeah.
Let's have it out. I always sometimes say that if all the world leaders
Yes.
were women, maybe we will have less wars. But then we have Indira Gandhi. She fought brilliant war in 1971, dismembering Pakistan. You had
Where it
Margaret
has to be
Thatcher.
fought, it has to be
Margaret
fought.
Thatcher, she took the Falkland Island from Argentina. So there have been the women also can be aggressive. I have deep respect for that. I don't believe in the theory that women can't be angry and they can't fight. I think they can also go to war.
Absolutely
The only
not.
thing you have to remember is don't piss them off, to use the American slang.
The wounded tigress.
So, you have to be careful.
Wounded tigress element comes in.
Even
Yes.
Lord Shiva was always scared of Parvati. Remember that part of the story. So, keeping that humor aside, it is important for us to remember that in my theory is that, tremendous amount of money is wasted. Do you think the Israeli dome comes cheap? Do you imagine how much money they spend? And they are just about in the next door. They can't stop the shooting off. It is not that Hamas and Iran wants Israel destroyed. It is on record, right?
I heard, like you said just now, when you talked about the cost, I remembered that it seems one rocket that goes about is about $300, around 21,000 rupees. But the vehicle, the rocket that intercepts that, it costs around 70 to 80 lakhs. So that is the kind of, expense that Israel is incurring.
Correct.
Is it worth that?
Right.
Is it worth that? Why is a
saying,
country being subjected to do that?
Right.
Unnecessary.
See, the war is an industry.
Yeah.
War machine is an industry. We have to recognize that part.
Yeah.
And in
a
PBS conference, a TV thing, about 10 or 12 years ago, when 4 stalwarts of 4 administration were talking about whether United States should pull back its overseas presence of armed forces, from Germany, from Philippines, from Japan, and bring it back. And I have said that if you need it, you have it. But I have a different question. And I said this. I said, instead of supplying Pakistan F-16, which costs, each plane at that time cost $1 billion, why don't you mandate that instead of F-16, we'll give you $1 billion to teach science, economics, civic sense, and other studies in your madrasas, respect, religious studies.
Saudi Arabia has introduced Ramayana and Mahabharata.
Interviewer came to me, sir, do you want to enter politics? So I said, it's not a political statement, it's a need-based statement. You can't supply weapons to people and then tell them to practice peace. It doesn't happen. It contradicts itself. So we as the people, we Indians here, we Indians are under attack in this country. You look at it this way, there are self-declared Indians who take fancy in attacking India. The self-loathing is so strong that they end up attacking because they hate Modi. Come on. Grow up. Grow up. Because there is nothing stronger than country. And nothing more important than country. You can't be critical. I mean, you may disagree with the policy, but you can't run down the country. Today, I'm noticing particularly, and I'm very vocal about it, I don't mince words on it, many people from Congress party who are not in power for the last as many years now, the 7th year in running, they are feeling rudderless. The only way they can come back to power is Modi goes, because Modi has done the right things. So apart from the fact that, Modi is riding a tough battle for himself because
Yes.
everybody is gunning for him. The left liberal Marxist model is all gunning for him because
Yes.
in his presence, these people have no future. So look at
Exactly.
Congress Party where it has gone. So their supporters in America are deliberately creating problem. I was told by a Democratic Party functionary. He said to me, we
Hmm.
don't care what you did with Kashmir and about your integration of your own country, but it's your people who are forcing to pass resolutions. Think about it. It's Indians who are doing it. And
Yes.
that's not fair. That's not correct because you represent erroneously. Don't represent a faulty idea as a virtuous idea. It doesn't work that
Absolutely.
way.
Very true. Very true. And their voices are so strong. And across so many newspapers, they publish things which are very, very negative images of the nation. You know,
Look, we are
and they are
talking about
giving
we are
people.
talking about Israel-Palestine conflict. We will keep the India thing some other day.
Yes.
But considering the time factor all put together, I would say a couple of things here. We have
Yes.
to be, we Indians need to get engaged with political process. And the only way you can become a successful engager in the dialogue and conversation is by learning about your own faith, your own philosophy, and your own way of life. If we do not do that, then we can't argue. And where I admire Christians and Muslims are that their
Absolutely.
commitment to their faith is very strong. You can't fault
Absolutely.
them on that. You know,
Yeah.
whereas our commitment to our faith is chalega. That's the attitude which kills us. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a very powerful statement for people to know here. There's a very famous Indian journalist who is a friend of mine. I know him. Let's not say friend. We know each other. He's a very powerful guy. If I tell you the name, you will know instantly. Everybody will know his name. He wrote an article 5 or 6 years ago saying that Bhutto's thousand. Remember Prime Minister Bhutto, who was
Yes.
hanged.
Yes.
He made a
Right.
statement that we will fight a 1,000-year war with India to get justice, right? He had
Exactly.
made that statement,
Right.
1,000-year war. So this gentleman wrote an article that Bhutto's 1,000-year war has still 930 years to go. And I replied to him.
Yeah.
I said to him, no, you are missing the point. In reality, Islam has won its first 1,000-year war because we had to give them Bangladesh and Pakistan, two Islamic republics within our own land. Our
Yes.
historical heritage of Mahabharat is sitting as Kandahar, which was
Yeah.
earlier Kandahar, right?
Part of Pakistan now.
We have
Yes.
we have lost so much
Lost.
already, and that's what Muslims must realize. That so long as you keep harping on the religious element of the conversation, this entire Arab-Israel thing, and the Palestine-Israel thing, the entire everything has roots in religion. The hatred
Absolutely.
against Hindus is about religion.
Yeah.
You see the fanatic Muslims talking about we will eliminate Hindus and everything, all the temples from India by 2024, 2025. It's pathetic because I ask a very fundamental question. Is Islamic cancer, Christian cancer, or Hindu cancer any cancer preferable? You can't
Absolutely.
say that. You can't say that, right? Ulcer is
Yeah.
ulcer, migraine is migraine, cancer is cancer. They don't have any religious monopoly. It's a
Exactly.
human element. And everywhere on the planet Earth, all women take 9 months to deliver what is known as a biological normal baby. Am I
Yeah.
right? Nobody
Absolutely.
God could change that truth. If we veer
Absolutely.
away from the truth in the name of religion, as the saying goes, God appointed kings, but the religious godmen were visited upon by God. That's a very interesting statement. God told me that. Come on, let's stop that crap. God didn't tell
Yes.
anybody
God
anything.
didn't tell anybody. Exactly.
God didn't tell anything anybody. Some smart guy wrote a book. I had a conversation with God. And if we can't have a conversation about reality and truth, then what conversation
Yes.
are we having really, right? Every
Absolutely.
man or woman has a designated body part performing identical function.
Correct. All over the world.
Right? And a
Yes.
child is conceived through a process of a man and woman's union. There is no other way. Yes, you can have artificial insemination and all that. In extreme cases, there is a scientific process available. But even after knowing,
Even there too, yes, there is a male and female union even in
yes,
artificial
even in
insemination.
artificial
Absolutely.
insemination,
Yes,
point which I'm trying to make here is that we have to remember that we need to begin to bring down religion as a fait accompli to a reasonable and rational conversation.
exactly.
iPads and smartphones don't have any religion written on it. So why is
Yes,
anybody, does any Quran, Bible, or Bhagavad Gita say use this instrument? But we are flying in the plane. We can't fly, but we can fly in the plane. We are doing things to improve things. Is this the way? If it is an impediment, remove it. That's my observation. If there is
absolutely.
something which is becoming an impediment in my friendship with you, let's remove that impediment.
There is no religion above humanity.
There is no religion about humanity. But
Yeah.
the conflict is international relationship is all about dynamics of war, conquering.
Master racism from Hitler and master faith from Islam.
Yes,
Both
exactly.
have been
Yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
ruining the
Right.
nation.
And we
Yes.
need to talk about it more because it's these things do not happen in one conversation. We have to begin to get engaged in the process, and that's
Exactly.
what is important. Is
Yes.
this first of all in Arab, in Israel Palestine conflict, let there be one agreement. Let no
Right.
innocent man die. Let there be, even before you go to war, let me say, I will not, even if you don't eliminate war as an instrument, I will say, let's all agree on one thing, that
Yeah.
let no innocent life go. Period.
Yeah.
If we can come to that agreement, then there is a sincerity for saving lives. If you can't come to that agreement, then
What's
I
the
think it's
point?
all hogwash. It is
Very true.
all about might is right. It's all about my religion and my way. That's the conflict. You and I are Hindus. We pray to whatever God we want to pray. I'm not criticizing your God. You don't criticize who I pray to, whether I pray
Yeah.
or not.
No, no. Yes. How many times do you pray? How do you pray? Absolutely. Nobody is interested.
And God is,
Exactly.
I have fun
Yes.
with God. I'm a God loving person. I have fun with God. I say, you're the ultimate mischief. You make us all go down on our knees, right?
But we don't believe in God fearing. We are God
Yes,
loving. Right.
yes, I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
saying very simple thing is that this is my theory is that Europe is trying to eliminate the stigma of two world war on its back and its chest. They are itching for a third world war, and that
Okay.
third world war arena would be in this area in the Middle East. That is a battle of jihad versus crusade will happen once again. It will be
Is not COVID already the third world war?
COVID is a big lesson from God.
Biological, absolutely. Oh,
Yeah, it is a big
it's
lesson
not
from
God.
God that
It
I'm
is
telling you that somebody said
man-made. It is man-made.
it is man-made. It's totally
Yes.
man-made. I said it in my program 2 years ago when I was
Yes.
talking. When a doctor was in my program, he was a frontline warrior. You
Yeah.
know, the frontline warrior. He was the chief of medicine in a Long Island hospital, and chief of medicine and in charge of ICU, a 50-bed ICU. Okay, he said two things, and he's a very bold guy. He said, Fauci is the man who is conveying wrong impressions. He's a very learned guy in his domain of virology and everything else, but he's conveying the wrong impression and conveying the wrong message. And second, this is man-made. This kind of a man-made pandemic doesn't happen because of virus escaping from a lab. It doesn't.
Yes.
And I'm asking everybody here, if you have seen this or not, to see the movie Mission Impossible 2. The moment this pandemic happened, I told my son, this is MI2
Solved.
happening. This
Yeah.
is MI2 happening.
Yes.
So that's what I would say that, I think
All
the
evidences
entire
are
world,
coming out
every
now to
Indian,
prove that it emanated from Wuhan. All evidences are coming now.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah. All evidences are coming. So,
Evidences are,
like you said, yes. So it is very clear now.
it's clear now, yeah.
And
The question is, when I was in Bahrain for an assignment, consulting assignment, I wrote an article. I said that technology will force people to become honest, and because you can't hide anymore. You can hide only for a little while, but it can be found. You can be tracked, and
Absolutely.
with the gods we used to say, the god up in the sky.
And
Now you have
yes,
AI in the sky, right?
satellites and absolutely cameras. So everything is being captured. Nothing
That's
can
right.
go without. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So anybody who says that, that's what comment I'm referring to, that India will support anybody who is anti-Islam, is absolutely hogwash. That means you do not understand Hindus.
India, exactly.
We
Yes,
all that I ask in every
yes,
forum with my British, English, or speaking friends, and I always say, leave us alone. You forgot the James Bond movie's statement: "Live and let live."
exactly.
That's the only way to continue living together.
Yeah. So the huge lesson from Israel is whatever is happening is at least there should be a belief in one nation. We need to develop that culture.
Mhm.
That is the first learning that I got from whatever you discussed. We all will take the book and read it. It is very, very important to build that feeling for the nation, that emotion for our nation.
Right.
And that only is going to lead us towards progress together, irrespective of the religions that we follow. It
True.
is very important to realize that we all may follow different faiths, but we all have to live under the same skies. And all of us need a piece of the sky, and all of us have a place under that sky.
Right.
And we have to give each other that. That
Correct.
is very important.
Very
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vibhuti. It was a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
And
dear friends.
I'll
Yes.
say one more thing here is that
Yes.
sometimes, the mindset operates differently. Some people would
Yes.
like to have technical knowledge. I'm talking about, let's go deeper. Let's
Yes.
understand the facts. Telling you that what happened in 1917 and what did Arafat did and what Yazdi Kiabin did, what this fellow did, it doesn't matter anymore. I'm of the
Absolutely.
thought process using technology, GPS. So when you put in a destination in your GPS, it tells you how much time it will take, where are the places where the traffic is jammed. But if you took a wrong turn, GPS guides you back on the
Exactly.
track, right?
Yeah,
Let's use
absolutely.
our human genome GPS
GPS.
better. That if
Yes.
we have made so many mistakes in the past, what lesson are we learning from there? Are we committing the same crime and same acts? It
Exactly.
brings me back to the Einstein's theory statement, the famous statement, whether it's Einstein or somebody I don't remember, is that the thing is that you do the same thing, repeating,
Yeah.
expecting a different
Again, it's
result.
not,
Is
don't
the
expect
definition
different
of
results.
stupidity.
Yes.
Is the definition of the stupidity, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what I am saying, that go back into the history, read something. If you want to know more, ask something more. If you're not clear about it, ask something more. But understand what is it which is at the root of it all. And I
Yes.
put it this way: European imperialism is at the root of it. They are bearing the brunt now. The second part is that a country like Israel can survive. Why can't
Yes.
we? Why can't a
Why
country
can't we?
of 3 billion
Absolutely.
people not handle our smaller neighbors? It's a wonderful contrast to think through. That a country like
Exactly.
Israel, with such a small country, surrounded by enemies, having fought
What
unsurprising
six
ways.
countries at one point of
Right.
time?
Yeah.
Yes.
And India, we are struggling with
So
our neighbors. Why? This is the question that we have to ask. Why must we be
actually,
questioned?
I don't think the neighbors outside we are troubled so much as we are with the people within.
Yes.
That 1 billion population among them, even supporters, you
Right.
never know when they are changing wings.
Mhm.
That is what is bothering me, right? So, very easily people are bought and sold. It is very important to have that.
Yes.
I cannot sell my soul.
Correct.
I That is something very important.
And
Unless
what,
we
what
cultivate that.
I would also say, Girijaji, here is that in India and in the United States, both places, we Indians need to get politically engaged. You don't become a politician, that's perfectly fine. But get
Absolutely.
engaged in the process. Learn
Awareness.
in your communities, whether you are in Mumbai,
Yeah.
whether in New York. or California or San Diego, wherever you are, get involved with the process. Because if you are not engaged in the process, you are eventually going to suffer or maybe have a gain sometime. So,
Yeah.
what I'm
History will
saying
repeat itself.
is get engaged, get heard, get seen, become visible, talk about yourself, who you are, your essential principles are. Because nowadays in America, the woke culture and cancel culture is bringing about education, which is so bloody bad. And I shared that with you in the morning, that they are having debates here,
Absolutely.
including Indian children,
Yes.
asking them to write an essay how to defeat Modi in 2024 in schools here. Think about it.
Yeah.
So I talking about Israel is good. I'm enraged for that reason. I shared that message. This is going ridiculous. I'm asking parents whose children are in school that you can't let them be misled. That's
Absolutely.
totally wrong. I mean, I can share my experience. For example, when I came here in 91, it was in California. That was the time when Anita Hill and Justice Thomas case of sexual abuse was happening, going on. And as it happens in the US, it was a live telecast, the hearing. It was
Okay.
being aired in my son's classroom in fifth grade. So I asked the teacher, I went to the school just for a visit, and I asked the teacher, is that necessary? Do fifth grader need to be exposed to the world of sexual exploitation a day long? Not only that, you are asking him to write a report on it. How terrible is that? So teacher says, no, our kids know. Our kids are aware. I said, no, that's where you are wrong. Just because you gain puberty at the age of 13 doesn't mean you get pregnant, right?
Exactly.
You have to apply the
The body
standard.
doesn't have the maturity for
Yeah,
that.
you
Yeah,
you you
absolutely.
you do not have to have things available at a wrong time. There is a thing called wrong time.
Yes,
Voting age
absolutely.
is 18, but
They
understand.
won't know to handle it responsibly.
Right, right.
Yes.
So this is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say. That I'm all for no violence.
But when you're talking about political engagement, let me tell you, in India, if say I were to write a post on Facebook and I receive comments, there will be tens and fifteens of people who will be calling me up and saying, "You are up for trouble. Why are you writing this?" People are writing comments. If when you walk down on the street, somebody is going to hit you. This is how people talk. And they say, "Your one post, what kind of a difference is it going to make?" So, if somebody attacks a person whom I believe is a true leader, and if I keep quiet and I say, okay, one person is not going to make a difference, and if every one citizen thinks that one person is not going to make a difference, then there will be never a difference at all.
Right,
This is what is happening, but
right,
so we have to change this mindset within our own family,
right,
within our friend circle. So I keep saying, no, it doesn't matter what you think, but I want to express myself. That is my own page. I'm writing on my page. I'm not asking people to comment. If they comment, that is their right. When I feel like, I'll respond.
right.
That's it.
And the,
Yes.
the, the one other element that I would say is that we Indians have to begin to understand a very simple fact that we may be lovers of ahimsa, maybe ahimsa ke param pujari, vegan and vegetarian, we don't believe in killing. But if your
Yeah.
family is attacked,
Yes.
you have to rise to
Absolutely.
protect and defend your family. Otherwise, they are going to be
Well
dishonest.
said.
And to be
Yes.
able to fight, you have to be battle ready. You know,
Very
so
true.
whatever it is there, you have to be ready. Whether it is any which way that you can protect your family, that's your dharma.
Yeah.
That's your essential dharma. So you
Exactly.
protect your dharma, you have to be battle ready. You can't get battle ready
You
just
can't
because you're
say that
sitting
you're
there
helpless.
running the Olympics 4 years later. No, you can't. You practice for 4 years before you run the race. A soldier is
Absolutely.
battle ready at any given point in time. That's what we have to
Absolutely.
begin to inculcate in our sense. And I will leave my last word from this. Learning from Israel is
Yes.
I narrated with the Kashmir story that when 500,000 people left, were forced to leave, face an exodus because of genocide. Every Kashmiri was happy that we were not violent. We didn't retaliate in violence, right? We were peaceful. We did not cause any trouble. And that's a matter of pride. That's our upbringing and culture.
Yes.
But
And none of them became a terrorist or anything. All of them came
when I
out and they
said this to
suffered.
my American friends, they said, that's absolutely awesome. But you mean to say nobody fought back? And that's a question to be
Absolutely.
answered and thought about by us. He also said that you are 80% a Hindu country. You mean to say nobody rose back or fought back? But our Mahabharata and Ramayana teach us the lesson that when dharma is threatened, you have to rise.
You have to rise. Yes. Where is that lesson gone? Exactly. Yes. So, ahimsa and show the other cheek when somebody hits you, I think those are not the right policies. We need to understand that we need not hurt others, but definitely we need to protect ourselves, and we cannot go on allowing people to make inroads into our culture, attack our civilization. And also, we need to understand that we have a Swadharma and we have to respect that.
And
Yes,
the
absolutely.
last word of mine, Atithi Devo Bhava must be our philosophy, which is a good philosophy, nothing wrong in it.
Right.
If any one of us here feels that Pakistan is an Atithi, it's a barbarian at the gate. Even if you offer them lassi, champagne, and gulab jamun, wo kha ke aapko maar denge.
Exactly. With additional energy.
You have to apply
That is-
selectively. With these
yes.
words, I'll say thank you very much for having me today. It was good to have this
Absolutely.
conversation.
It was great fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, Common Man, Soundscapes, all of you. You participated so beautifully, and your comments were very useful. You have read and come. I could see that some of you after we had discussed in the morning. So thank you so much. Yes, how the world has evolved around us and change according to it. That is very important. Yes, Common Man has said a
Yes.
very important thing, very uncommon wisdom coming from a common man. Thank you so much. Good night. See you next Thursday, 9:30 p.m. Good night.